Okay, hello, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending the webinar. Please let me know if you can hear my voice and if the video feed is okay so that we can get started. Okay, so if you can hear my voice and you can see the screen, please let me know so that we can get over the settings and get started. Right. Uh, so while these other people are joining into the webinar and we're doing our sound checks, I'd like to just give you an overview of what exactly are we going to cover today and, the presentation and the content of the training. So for starters, this is a CPD approved training program, okay? And this is the link that you can use to verify the authenticity of your certificate and also to update your CPD profile. So when it comes to auditing, okay, CPD is a very important subject and a very important aspect of your auditing certification. To become a certified auditor, you need a CPD profile. And a CPD profile basically consists of the auditing activities, okay? When you conduct an audit, you have to retain documented information, i.e. evidence that indeed you've conducted an audit. So that can be an audit plan, that can be an audit checklist, an audit report, and a corrective action form, and also including the auditing work papers that you have used during the audit. So that is going to be the emphasis in this webinar. What I'm going to do, I'm going to walk you through how to conduct an audit for an integrated management system and also how to retain the documented information you need as an auditor so that you can demonstrate that you know how to conduct an audit and also what have you done as far as IMS auditing is concerned. Another aspect that we also have to cover here when it comes to IMS audit, we really have to look at what exactly is the purpose of an IMS audit. This is very, very important so that if we set a vision and understand what are we trying to do from the beginning, that is also going to help you as an auditor not to do too many things which might not really add value to your auditing activities. It's very important that at the beginning of each audit, whatever audit it is, you should set an objective, a purpose that is going to guide you, and whatever that you're going to do during the auditing activities, it should guide you towards that particular objective. And for an IMS audit, okay, IMS audits, they are always conducted to determine capability, always, all right? And the reason being, IMS basically integrated management system is based on what we call the TAP-B standards, the harmonized structure, which is the Annex SL, and I'm going to explain that in a moment. So when you're going to conduct an IMS audit, what you're trying to do, you want to determine or you want to find out if the organization is capable to achieve its intended outcomes. Every organization, usually they've got what we call IMS objectives. And these IMS objectives, they are usually written in an IMS policy statement. So these are the intended outcomes. This is what they want to achieve in a particular process. And when you're going to be conducting an audit, all what you're going to do as an auditor, you want to determine that capability. Are you capable? Do you have what it takes to achieve what you have said at the policy statement of intent? And in order for you to determine capability as an auditor, you need to gather the audit evidence of conformance, consistency, and continual improvement to the integrated management system, to the Annex SL high-level structure. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. And in this webinar, I'm also going to show you what does the, how to gather evidence of conformity, what is consistency, and what is continual improvement, and how do you conduct an audit. To really make sure that you are going to understand, the examples and the case studies I'm going to be giving you, I'm going to be using an example for this organization. Okay, this organization uses integrated management systems. So I'm going to show you how you could conduct an audit in a particular process like this. And of course, from this example, you can pick up and also, find out some similarities with what you have in your organization. All right. And of course, at the end of the webinar, you are also going to receive the Integrated Management System course bundle, including the handbook for guiding for the handbook for conducting audits. And this handbook, actually, you can find it in your course bundle. Please check your email inbox. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is all what you can expect in this webinar. And now let us get started. And also, if you look at the presentation for this webinar, the presentation on its own is 15 pages long, okay? I'm not going to be spending much time explaining just the theoretical aspect. Most of the time in this webinar, I'm going to be spending it actually showing you these concepts and how to use these auditing work papers, because this is a CPD training. It's not really like a lecture where to say this is a show and tell, okay? I have to demonstrate to you how to do these things. That is what CPD is all about. So these steps, I'm going to be going through these steps for conducting an audit. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to send you a summary, a blog actually on how to conduct an IMS audit in 7 steps. Conducting an audit on its own is really simple. What you really need to understand, first of all, is what is an integrated management system, because there is a trap, or there is basically you are vulnerable to be using a collection of standards rather than integrated management standards. So integration and the integrated standards and the collection of standards, these are two different things, and they totally work totally different. So this concept of actual integration is going to be it's going to be a steep learning curve, which is going to spend about a substantial amount of time in this webinar. But after that, we are just going to go into the 7 steps of conducting an audit, which should be simple and straightforward, really. And there's no shortage of examples. So I hope and I look forward to everyone really understanding this concept of conducting an audit. At the end of this webinar, I expect this webinar to last for about 1 hour 30 minutes. Okay, there is in 1 hour 30 minutes, I'm going to show you. I'm going to walk you through from a practical experience how to plan, execute, and report, and follow up on combined internal audits. And I'm going to be giving you examples. What you really need to know in auditing, it does not really matter about. It's not about how long do you learn auditing, or about how many days do you take training. That is not all about it. In auditing, it's really just understanding what do you need to do. That is the make it or break it in auditing. Okay, so when it comes to IMS audit, okay, this is now what you need to do. As an auditor, I'm going to show you how to gather audit evidence, which consists of what you call the evidence of conformance, consistency, and continual improvement. Evidence of conformity, I'm going to show you which documents to review. Evidence of consistency, I'm going to show you the questions to ask. Evidence of continual improvement, I'm going to show you the red flags to look at. And I'm also going to show you the audit criteria that you're going to use to compare your audit evidence in order to determine your audit findings. Honestly, this is a concept that can really be explained in 20 minutes or less. But of course, I'm going to explain to give you the context so that you can really understand why and how are you gathering that kind of evidence. But when it comes to auditing, auditing is really a simple aspect and a simple skill to learn. All what you're going to do in auditing is just to gather evidence, and then you compare to the standard, to the audit criteria, and then you determine whether or not there is a conformity or they don't match, and then that is all about it. The problem in auditing is not knowing what to do, not knowing which documents to review, not knowing which questions to ask, and not knowing what are the red flags. That is the biggest challenge, and I'm going to show you explicitly with examples what to do. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again for attending this webinar. My name is Farai Langton Chwai. I'm a risk management consultant here at the KHSC Group. We are based in Dubai, in Dubai Silicon Oasis in the United Arab Emirates, and I'm going to be your host for today's workshop. So we are now going to start off, as I've given you the auditing equation already. One of the biggest challenges, okay, one thing that you really have to be careful when it comes to integrated management system is the difference between integrated and a collection of standards. So this is the handbook which was published by ISO, okay? This handbook was published because a lot of organizations, they have a collection of standards rather than integrated management system standards. So this handbook right here, okay, you can click here to view the free preview, or you are going to get it alongside your course bundle and your certificate. This is the handbook that explains using examples what does it mean to have an integrated management system and what exactly is being integrated. Okay, so this handbook, what it does, it gives you the different components, okay, components of the integrated management system. It gives you also examples of the organizations like Jim the Baker and so on. How did they integrate their management systems? And also, if you're going to look at these survey responses, you're going to see that a lot of organizations, I think it was up to 60% of organizations who claim to have an IMS, they actually have a collection of standards, not integrated management system standards. So, the chances are some of the people, or you who is attending this webinar, you might be one of those people who are using a collection, not an integrated management system. Okay, so this is now what I really want to do at the beginning. I want to explain to you what is an integrated management system and how does it work. At this point now, I'm going to show, this is going to be easier for you as an auditor to pinpoint at the beginning whether there is an integrated management system or it does not exist. So let us start off with the definition. According to ISO, an integrated management system should or shall integrate all of your organization systems and processes into one complete framework, enabling your organization to work as a single unit with unified objectives and with unified objectives to achieve its purpose and mission. So from this definition now, I want to break down this definition, and this is now going to help me also explain what is an integrated management system. So from this definition, you can see that, it reads, you are going to integrate all of your organization systems, okay, and processes. So let us look at what exactly are these organization systems and processes that are being integrated. What exactly are these ones? So an integrated management system, the first step of an integrated management system, ladies and gentlemen, is a process. Okay, make no mistake about it. You need a process. You need a product or a servicialization process. This is the beginning of true integration. So what you do in a process like this, so this is a process with different stages, and this is a process of solar connection. For example, in Dubai, if you want a solar panel at your residence or at your house, this is the step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. This is basically a diagram describing a service or a product relation process, the customer journey. The same way you have these processes in your organization. So this is the beginning of an integrated management system. An integrated management system, it is always applied to a process. And I'm going to show you when I'm going to introduce the Annex SL and so on. So coming back to the definition, when we say every organization, you have to integrate your systems and processes, what does that mean? It means that in a system like this, in a process like this, okay, you have a system to help work become more efficient and to reduce product failures. Okay, that is a system that exists in this process. And then in this process also, this process of solar connection panel, this product or selection process, you also have a system to help reduce environmental impacts and to reduce waste and to become more sustainable. In this process that you have in your organization, okay, you also have got a system to reduce accidents in the workplace. So that means, you have got 3 systems, okay, in this process right here. So when we say we need to integrate these systems, that is what is being integrated. And of course, the system that you are using to help work become more efficient is called ISO 9001, that is quality management. The system you use to reduce environmental impact is what ISO 14001, and the system that you use to reduce the workplace accidents is called ISO 45001. So these are the systems that are being integrated. And here, when I say systems, I mean what you do, whether it's ISO 9001 or not, what you are doing within that process to help work to become more efficient and to reduce product failure. Those procedures, the steps you take to help reduce environmental impacts, what you do to help reduce accidents in the workplace, whatever you do right here, we are going to integrate it. Now, what is this one complete framework that has got the ability to integrate all these 3 management systems? And then this one complete framework now is called the Annex SL. What is the Annex SL? Okay, the Annex SL, ladies and gentlemen, this is the high-level structure. According to ISO, they said over the years, we published many management standards for topics ranging from quality, environment, information security, and business continuity. Back then, before Annex SL, despite sharing common elements, all these ISO standards had different structures, and in turn, this resulted in confusion and difficulties at the implementation stage. Okay, they went on to say most organizations have more than one management system standard to implement and certify. Okay, for example, this organization here, they've got one management standard to implement and certify in this process. In this process, they've got quality, safety, and environment. Okay, and of course, implementing and certifying individually is going to take up a lot of extra time and resources. So there is a clear need to find a way of integrating and combining standards in the best way possible. And in order to address this problem, ISO developed the Annex SL. So this Annex SL, as you can see, is a way of integrating management standards, and that is the framework we are talking about. So from this definition, you can see that we are going to integrate 3 different standards using Annex SL so that we can work as a single unit. What is this single unit? it means this single unit right here. And where are the unified objectives? Unified objectives to achieve your purpose and mission. This is now the IMS policy that you see right here. So that is now a breakdown of this definition. And what I've just done here, I'm just giving you a summary of what is in this handbook of integrated management standards on how exactly to integrate them. Okay, so that is an IMS. When you are looking at the IMS, okay, what exactly is this Annex SL? This Annex SL now, what it is, ladies and gentlemen, it gives us what you call the goal setting requirements, okay? The Annex SL, what it does, it does not give prescriptive requirements, it gives you goals to meet. So this goal right here under number 4, okay, should be met in this process right here, okay? And then this goal right here should be met in what? In that process, and then this goal right here. In order to understand, if you want to get more information, you just go on the internet and then you say type A and type these standards, okay? And then you say ISO like this. If you do that, you're going to see that ISO, they're also going to give you an explanation, okay, of what is the difference between type A and type B standards. Annex SL and the IMS, they fall under the type B standards, okay? These type B standards, many of them, they contain the same definitions. This is particularly useful for organizations that choose to operate a single, sometimes called an integrated management system that can meet the requirements of 2 or more management system standards simultaneously, okay? So this is where it all started. So if your organization, you are not using these goal setting requirements right here, chances are you are collecting standards, not integrating them. Standards, they can be integrated by using an Annex SL, and basically your standard or your type B standard here is going to be these goal setting requirements, and I'm going to show you also as we go on. So that is now the basic definition of an integrated management system, and that is what is being integrated. To just show you in a diagram what exactly that definition means, if you can look at all these systems right here, we have got a system for quality, system for environment, system for information security, compliance, and so on. These are all different systems. And in the middle, there is the IMS. The IMS, that is now the Annex SL, is based on the Annex SL, a type B standard that can meet the requirements of all those standards simultaneously. So this diagram right here, it basically shows you the representation of what is an IMS. If you have an IMS, you don't have 1 or 2 or 3 management standards. You are going to have one standard based on Annex SL. And the reason being that, when you meet the goals that have been set in the Annex SL, you are going to meet all the requirements for these standards. So this is now the definition. Now, I want to show you as an auditor now, when you go to conduct an audit for an IMS, what do you expect to see? What is regarded as the benchmark that indeed there exists an integrated management system in this organization? So I'm going to show you in this diagram what exactly it is. As an auditor, what do you expect to see when you are going to conduct an audit? And from this section, I'm going to show you where is the evidence of conformity, where is the evidence of consistency, and where is the evidence of continual improvement. As I said at the beginning of the webinar, the biggest hurdle in auditing is basically knowing what to do. If you don't know what to do, what to expect as audit evidence, it's going to be very difficult for you to conduct an audit because you've got nothing to compare to. So what I'm going to show you here, I'm going to explain what you're looking at here, this definition. I'm going to make it, I'm going to show you how it applies in real life, okay, in a real process. So there are going to be inputs. Okay, so these inputs, these are called risks. These are basically the risk to the intended outcomes, the risk to the quality, safety, and environmental objectives. Okay, so these can be threats. For example, a threat to quality management can be lack of competence. A threat to safety management can be poor safety culture. A threat to a what? Environmental management can be lack of awareness. Okay, and then these risks, they also consist of opportunities. Opportunities, that means what can help you to meet the quality objectives in the process. Okay, whenever you're talking of an IMS, please do not forget the word process. IMS is only applied to a process. Okay, so that now opportunities for you to meet your quality objectives in a process is to streamline the process. Your opportunity to meet safety objectives, you have competent supervision. And for you to meet your environmental objectives, you can prepare a legal register. These are just examples. And then what are you going to do? Now you have got threats and opportunities to a process, okay? To your product or safety life chain process, to your process flow. Now, the Annex SL, what is it going to do? The Annex SL, remember, this is a framework that is going to simultaneously manage those risks and opportunities. Instead of managing these threats and opportunities by 9,014 and 45, we are now going to have one platform. Instead of having 3 management systems to manage these threats and opportunities, we are now having one framework. All ISO standards, fundamentally speaking, the purpose of an ISO standard is to manage risks and opportunities. ISO 9001 manages quality, risks, and opportunities. ISO 14001 manages health, environmental risks and opportunities. ISO 45001 manages health and safety risks and opportunities. That is all what it is to it. So right now, instead of using 3 different management standards, we are now going to a Type B standard, which is the Annex SL. Now, the Annex SL now is going to give you a set of procedures. It's going to give you a model to follow, which can be seen as a PDCA. The Annex SL is going to set goals for you for leadership commitment, give you goal-setting requirements, or what they call generic requirements for identifying and assessing risks. In do, the Annex SL is going to give you procedures to follow in order to implement your plan. In the check, it's going to show you how to monitor the risk management using plans, okay? And then in act, the Annex SL is also going to help you implement changes in your approach, all right? And then what you're going to get at the end of it, you're going to have quality standards that are going to help you. Your work is going to become more efficient. You're going to reduce workplace accidents, and you're also going to reduce environmental impacts and reduce work and to become more sustainable. So this is exactly what happens. And to show you exactly how this happens, what you're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen, is literally the same as this. So you see, this is now what you need to do here. So this is now the process, okay? What you have, and the integrated management system, it starts with a process. So you select a process like this. In your organization, you have a product or a sales selection process. So for this organization, if they're going to use an Annex SL, okay, to have an integrated management system. And remember, there's a difference between a collection of standards and an integrated management system. Integration and collection, these are totally different things. Now, you start off with a process where you'd like to integrate your standards. And within that process, you are going to determine what are the risks to our quality, safety, and environmental objectives in this process. So in this process, the threats can be lack of competence, poor safety culture, and lack of awareness. And the opportunities here can be streamlining the process, competent supervision, and preparing a legal register. These are the threats and opportunities to your quality, safety, and environmental objectives in this process. After determining these risks now, you are going to use the Annex SL. The Annex SL, ladies and gentlemen, is going to combine all of those management systems into one complete framework to work as a single unit. You see, the process there, we are only going to use the Annex SL to manage these risks and opportunities so that work can become more efficient, we reduce workplace accidents, and also have got standards that are going to reduce the impacts and reduce to become more sustainable. This is how you use an integrated management system, okay? Now, with that being said now, let us now go back to auditing. At the beginning of this webinar, I said, when you're going to conduct an audit, all what you're doing, you want to determine capability, okay? So what it means is that when you are conducting an audit for this process right here, what exactly are you trying to do? You want to determine whether what they've said in this IMS policy, this is an IMS policy. What you see in this IMS policy, this is basically a description, what they want to achieve in quality, safety, and then environment, okay, in this process. So when we are going to conduct an audit, I need to determine, is this possible? Do they have what it takes in order to meet these goals right here? So I say you need to gather evidence of conformity, consistency, and then continual improvement. So coming back to this diagram, okay, what exactly does it look like, the evidence of conformance? So the evidence of conformance, what it is, evidence of conformance, ladies and gentlemen, it is basically here on the Annex SL. The evidence of conformity, it means that, we want to determine whether or not the organization, did they follow a set of procedures they need to follow in order to meet the intended outcomes or the IMS policy objectives. When you are looking at the evidence of conformity, you want to determine whether or not the organization followed a model. Are they using a model when they're setting up and operating an integrated management system? In other words, you are looking for the evidence of Annex SL. As you can see here, how would this affect the organizations? Management system auditors like you will now have to use a core set of generic requirements. So these core set of generic requirements, what are they? These are called the generic requirements right here, which are these goal-setting requirements. So this is evidence of conformity. Evidence of conformity, you want to determine if these statements I'm writing in blue, are they true right here? We go to the evidence of what? We go to the evidence of consistency. What is the evidence of consistency? Evidence of consistency, ladies and gentlemen, it means there should be a relationship between this section, okay, these objectives, and then these risks. Evidence of consistency, it means that for work to become more efficient and to reduce product failures should be a result of addressing the threat of lack of competence and also implementing the opportunity for streamlining the process. Evidence of consistency means that for you, in order to reduce environmental impacts in this process, should be a result of solving the threat of lack of awareness and implementing the opportunity of preparing a legal register. Do you understand? And then the evidence now of continual improvement, what does it mean? Well, continual improvement, let me start by what it does not mean. Well, continual improvement does not mean that if you have got one customer complaint here this year, and last year you had 2 customer complaints, that is continual improvement. Or let's say this year you have got 5 workplace accidents, next year you've got 1 accident, and then that is continual improvement. No, that is not what it means. Continual improvement in risk management, what it means that it's like, for example, let's say this was in January 2024. In January 2024, we had these threats and these opportunities. Now we're in July, we have managed to convert these threats and opportunities, i.e., we have managed the risk, and this is what we have. That change of state of affairs, addressing from threats to intended outcomes, that is continual improvement. So in this webinar, all what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I have a simple task here. I'm going to show you which questions to ask, which documents to review, what are the red flags to look for, so that you can also determine the capability of an organization to achieve its intended outcomes. So that is basically all what you need to do when you are conducting an IMS audit. So at this point now, before we proceed and start looking at before we proceed and go on to integrate management system, the documents I would like you to get, okay, first of all, okay, I would like you to get this resource, okay, for integrated management system, integrated use of management system. This is actually a mandatory, okay. You should actually always have, this with you so that you can see what are the examples. And then number 2, where we are going to go, you have for this integrated management system auditor handbook. So because right now we are now going into auditing. All along, I was just explaining to you what is an integrated management system and then how does it work. So all of this, actually, this one, you're going to get it also alongside your handbook like that, okay? And of course, if you'd like to get all these materials and these templates, please just go to your, to your email inbox or just click on this link. You can get the recording, the certificate, and also all the templates that we are going to have. Okay, so at the end of the webinar, I'm also going to repeat these 2 slides so that you can really understand what is an integrated management system. So at this point now, before I go into the steps of conducting an audit, let me just, so now let us go into the steps of performing an IMS audit. So these steps for performing an IMS audit, I'm also going to share a blog with you. This is a summary for the whole webinar that you're also going to receive at the end of the webinar. In case you might miss up some things or I might forget to say something, you can always just read through at your spare time. So at this point now, what are we going to do? So right now, before we now start these steps for performing an IMS audit, let me give you an overview and then we come back. So again, when we are going to conduct an IMS audit, always remember you are there to determine capability, okay? So when I say determining capability, all what you have to do is, first of all, you need 2 things, okay? You ask the organization, can I please have your what? Your IMS policy, number 1, like this one, and number 2, I need a process, okay? These are the 2 prerequisites that you need to conduct an IMS audit. So for example, if I go to this organization, Dubai Statistics Center, I'm going to request for the IMS policy and also the processes they have in their organization. That means the product or sales selection process or where they want to achieve these intended outcomes. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to gather evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement so that I can determine capability. That is all what it is. We want going to determine capability. Can this be true? Okay, are you capable of achieving these intended outcomes? Okay, so that is now what you do. And then when you're going to conduct an audit, what you're going to do, you're going to start off with documented information review, and then you're going to create an audit checklist, and then also you're going to write an internal audit plan. Okay, those are the activities in the pre-audit activities. And then after that, now you are now going to conduct the audit to generate the audit findings. This is now where you're going to gather your audit evidence. You compare it to the audit criteria in order to determine whether it's a conformity or non-conformity. And then you're going to document your findings in an internal audit report. Here now, you are basically reporting, determining whether or not the organization, are you really capable of achieving your intended outcomes? And then also number 3, you need a corrective action request so that indeed the organization can correct any shortcomings that you have found out as an auditor. So this is now what you need to do as your auditing activities. And when you are going to update your CPD, okay, when you are going to maintain your CPD to become a certified auditor in ISO standards, you should actually have documented information like evidence that, this is what I did for my document review. This is my audit report. This is my audit plan. This is my corrective action request. This is my audit checklist. All of these items here, ladies and gentlemen, this is what makes a certified auditor. You can only be a certified auditor if you present evidence that indeed you have conducted an audit, okay? And that is what I'm going to do in the next 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do now, let us now go start now with documented information review. So at this point, as I have told you now, before we go to step number 1, okay, when you are still here, at this point now, you know what to do, how are you going to conduct an audit. But as you know, from what I also said, there is a big problem with a collection of standards rather than an integrated management system standards. If there are a collection of standards, there is no any auditing, okay? A collection of standards does not help the people who are using them or anything. So what you need as an auditor now is now to first of all review the process, okay? You need first of all to confirm you need to confirm that indeed there is an integrated management system here before you conduct an audit. Otherwise, you're going to waste your time. Okay, so the way that you're going to confirm whether or not there's an integrated management system, you're going to use this checklist. So this checklist now, what it is now is a checklist now that has got different questions, okay? And then all what it is now is basically probing to look for evidence. For example, if you say you have roles and responsibilities and authorities for integrated management system being documented and communicated to those that they know, okay? This is basically you as an auditor really trying to determine whether or not these people, the process actually uses an integrated management system. They are not a collection of standards, okay? And when I say a collection of standards, usually what happens is that ISO 914 and 45, they are running parallel to each other. What happens in 9001 does not affect in 14 or the other way like that. Basically, they're using 3 or more standards in this process. So this checklist now, we developed it now to confirm that indeed there is a single unit working to achieve unified objectives. So in other words, this document, this checklist here, it is intended to confirm that this definition is true to that process. How do you know whether they've integrated their systems into one complete framework, and if they're working as a single unit to achieve the unified objectives? This is the gap analysis that you do. So this is now the checklist that I'm going to do in my initial visit. I'm going to visit this site, and I'm also going to be asking this question. Does the integrated management system documentation include your policy and objectives, the procedures and controls, and so on? If I confirm that indeed everything here is okay, I'm also going to ask about arrangements for internal communication and so on. When I'm going to ask and then go through all of these sections right here, it is going to confirm whether or not we have an integrated management system here or not, okay, before we proceed. Otherwise, I'm telling you, you can just waste your time. You go to the audit, and then all what you're seeing there is just a collection of standards running parallel to each other, and that does not help anyone, either you or the auditing team. So after this now, this is now used to stabilize the process. So as to say, to confirm that indeed there is an integrated management system. And if the management system is not integrated, you are going to proceed to this action required so that you can help them to develop an integrated management system before you come to conduct an audit. Okay, this problem of collection of standards is a very, very serious problem. That a lot of organizations, they really fell to that trap. So with that being said, now let us now get started now with the auditing activities. So we are now going to start off now by conducting an audit. Okay, so the first step is documented information review. So document information review, what exactly is happening here? So if you go let me say footprints on the beach. Okay, if you go to the beach, right, and then you can see some footprints like this, right? This is a form of documented information. Okay, these footprints, now there is information documented by these footprints. For example, you know that this was a single person. Okay, it was not a cat, it was not a dog, it was a human being walked through here. And there is also evidence that this person walked through here, not to the left and not to the right. Okay, how do I know that? This is information documented in forms of footprints. Okay, so this is now what documented information is. When you are going through this documented information review, you are looking for footprints. What kind of footprints? Well, you want to determine whether or not there is evidence that these statements right here, these statements, they are called generic requirements. These are the goals that have to be met in this process where you're conducting an audit. So these are basically the footprints. So I'm looking for footprints to determine whether or not this is true. If this is true, this is true in all of these clauses. Okay, so you do that by documented information review. It's basically as the exercise how you get the footprints on a beach. That is what you're doing right here. So documented information review now, it's going to help you as an auditor in two ways. When you are looking for those footprints, not only are you going to confirm that indeed there is evidence that the organization is compliant with the Annex SL and the integrated management system, okay? But you are also going to get to know the organization better. The same way the footprints are going to tell you whether this was a human being, it was a cat, or it was a dog. That kind of information, you get to understand what really happened. Is the same thing with documented information review. When you review documents, this is also going to show you what kind of inputs, okay, are really relevant to this process. What kind of threats and opportunities does this organization have, and what is going to be the purpose of the Annex SL? And the documented information is really the key aspect of auditing, because this is going to determine the contents and the composition of your audit checklist and your audit plan. There is no such thing as an audit plan or audit checklist that is prepared beforehand. It is going to be determined after reviewing documented information. And why is that? Because after documented information, we are going to understand what are the inputs in that particular integrated management system. Different inputs, different objectives, different organizations, they need a different checklist and a different audit plan. Okay, so step number 1 out of 7, what do you do? Well, here now, you only have to look at and then you have to look for. Okay, so what you do, you open your audit work paper, right, like this, and then you go to the section of documented information. Okay, and then you are going to see that it reads okay, when you come over here, you're going to see that under documentation review right here. So more specifically, the auditor, you are going to look for, okay? So you look for and then you look at. So what you're looking for, you want to determine, does your documentation respond to the standard? And whenever we say standard or IMS, we're talking about this, okay? We're talking about these goal setting requirements. This is the way of integrating and combining standards. This right here, okay? This is now what you're doing right here. The harmonized structure, okay? The integrated management system that can meet 2 or more requirements in management standards simultaneously. That is what you're talking about. So you now come over here, okay? And then you say, what you're looking at, does your documentation respond to the standard? Do the procedures describe what is happening? Is the documentation controlled? Are all employees informed? are the procedures followed by everyone all the time, and if there's objective evidence that these procedures are being followed. This is what you're looking for. Okay, this is what you're looking for, and you look for this under these documents. So you look at these documents. So let's say, for example, when you request for these 3 documents under legal and other requirements, you look at this and then you look for this. You understand? If it is about communication, you look at this and then you what? And then you look for this. You understand? And then that is all what you have to do under documentation. If it is operational control, and these documents, as you can see, these documents and records under operational control, okay? These are literally the footprints for this section right here for operational control. How do you know whether or not this has been done? What kind of evidence that is going to confirm that indeed this goal has been met in the process under clause number 8? What kind of footprints are you looking at? And these are literally the footprints that you're looking at. Do you understand? And then when you look at these objectives and targets, okay, these 1, 2, 3, these are literally the footprints, the evidence for this section right here under planning. You see? So that is all what you have to do. So when you are going to do a document review, you look at and then you look for. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to use this information to write your audit checklist and then your audit plan. So that is step number 1 in auditing. You have to look at and then you have to look for. So when you get your course bundles and resources, you can download that auditor work paper. It is also included in your auditor handbook. You can also download and then you can review those documents. Okay. If you don't know what exactly those documents look like, because maybe sometimes you don't know how these targeted objectives looks like, you just open your toolkit like this, and then you open these forms and checklists, okay? So you just open these forms and checklists, and then you can see these objectives and targets, and these are the downloads and the description on how exactly they have to be. That is the purpose of the course bundle, okay? So all these documents, let's say you don't know what exactly does it look like for the operation system, the internal audits, and so on. Those documents, you can actually download them and you can also see them, because sometimes in auditing, maybe this is your first time conducting an audit and you really don't know what legal and other requirements documents looks like. You can just go over there, okay? So you can just click on this link and then all these files, they're going to be sent to you by our team 15 minutes after you process your payment. So that is now what you do under document review. Now, document review now, the main purpose or the value that you're going to get here is now to customize your audit checklist. Now, at this point, after documented information review, when you look at and when you look for, after looking for those footprints, with that information, that is going to help you write an audit checklist. And the purpose of this checklist is to remind you what to do during the audit. Now, let me show you also another example. For example, some of you have got a grocery checklist, okay? Including me, okay? I always forget what do I have to buy when I go to the store. So what I do usually, I just write these items down. So what you're going to see here, this is a checklist which actually is used the same way and prepared the same way as an audit checklist. Why do you need a grocery checklist? It's not like you don't know what are potatoes, you don't know what is a lemon or apples. You already know these things, but you might what? You might forget. So that is also the same way that an audit checklist works. This is only to what? To remind you what to do during the audit. Another thing also, how exactly do you prepare a grocery checklist? How do you come up with a grocery checklist? Well, what I do, I go into the pantry, I look in the fridge, I walk around the kitchen, I review what is there and what is missing. Okay, if I don't have apple juice, I'm going to add apple juice. If I've got lemons in my kitchen, there is no need for me to add lemons right here. So that is also the same way that you do in this audit checklist. This audit checklist, what is going to be the components and the composition should be from reading of all the documentation, insight from reading the documentation. That means I'm going first of all to look at the results of documented information review in order for me to write an audit checklist the same way that you prepare your grocery checklist. And also, if I now go to, when I'm now shopping, okay, if I'm going to see chocolates before I see potatoes, okay, I'm not going to pass by the chocolates only because they are on the last on the list, okay? What I'm going to do, I'm going to collect and I'm going to check as I go. You understand? That is the same way you also use an audit checklist. It does not mean that if you see audit evidence for objectives and you are looking for evidence under operational control, and then you have to pass that and then you come back. No. All what you have to do, the main idea is to make sure that everything here has been checked before you go. So that is basically how it works. Now, let us now go to the actual example. So this is now the purpose to remind you what you have to do during the audit. And always remember, what do you have to do during the audit? During the audit, you have to gather evidence of conformity, consistency, and continual improvement. You have to ask questions, review documents, and also look at the red flags. So this audit checklist, please remember, it is always prepared based on the result of documented information review. There's no such thing that, we can use an audit checklist from my friend or from another process like that, okay? Because different processes, they've got different objectives and different contexts. That means the different risks and opportunities. So this should be based on the insight and reading from all the documentation, and you should prepare your notes in the form of a checklist, which will help you remember what you need to do during the main audit. So this is now what an audit checklist looks like, okay? So let me just show you right here. There's a document I forgot to upload. Okay, we are good. So this is now an audit checklist looks like. Again, this is also another problem that I see in new auditors. Usually there's a confusion that, an audit checklist looks like this. Usually, no, this is not an audit checklist, okay? These documents with these questions right here and then action like that. This is not an audit checklist, okay? An audit checklist looks like this, all right? An audit checklist, remember, its purpose is to remind you what to do during the audit, okay? And an audit checklist consists of the questions you're going to ask. That is the evidence of consistency, the documented information for the evidence of conformity, and the red flags for the evidence of what? Of continual improvement. This is what a proper audit checklist looks like. And also, another feature of an audit checklist is that it has got, you write the expected audit evidence before you even fill out these questions. And then also there is an audit finding section right here with a description. All right. So that is what an audit checklist looks like. So what are we going to do here? Always remember, we start off with the results of documented information. So let's say, for example, these are the documents that we looked at under the objectives. So these objectives, minutes of objectives, list of objectives, and related action plans, these are the documents I'm going to request for this process. This is what I'm going to look at and look for this process. All right. And then I'm going to come over here and then I'm going to paste them like this. You see? Now, under these objectives and targets now, this is now going to let me know which question I need to ask. Okay, now what do I do? You now come over here, okay, and then you scroll up. You scroll up here, you now look for the questions that are relevant to the documented information. For example, are there any objectives and targets associated with each function right here? This is going to be the question I'm going to ask over here. Okay, so I'm going to say with each function because we've got 4 or 5 functions in that department. You understand? And then what is going to be my red flags? My red flags now, I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to go to the objectives, and these are the red flags that I'm going to be looking at. Okay, like this. You see? So this now becomes my audit evidence, this section. Okay? You see, I said during the audit, I need to gather evidence of, consistency, evidence of conformity, evidence of continual improvement. You see? How do you come up with this? Okay? Well, what happens here, you use a fishbone diagram, okay? Because this is under objectives, no? So you come over here to the Annex SL, and then you go to this section. So this becomes the head of the fish, when you're using the fishbone diagram. This becomes the head of the fish. And all what you're looking at here, this is basically what can go wrong. Do you understand the different possibilities, which are going to be the spines or the bones of the fish like that? It's a simple auditing technique. But for you, you don't have to worry about all of that because in your audit handbook, you're going to receive a completed audit checklist. Right now, I'm only going to give you one example. We now go to the audit evidence expected. So this is now the audit evidence I'm going to gather regarding objectives and targets in this process. Okay, and as you can see, always when I'm saying whenever I'm showing you how to conduct an audit, I'm always saying process. Okay, because every integrated management system, it is actually process based. Okay, there's no such thing that you are going to apply an IMS to the whole company. It does not make sense, because if you look at this company, right, this company has got finance departments, he has got student departments. Okay, why would I, the IMS does not apply to any of these sections right here. Okay, to billing here, this billing is done online. There's no any health and safety issues right here. There's nothing that needs to be done here, okay? But rather, this IMS is applied to a specific process within the organization, okay? So it does not, so that is one of those things that, you really have to look out for. Anyway, so this is now the audit evidence I'm going to gather for this process right here. So let us now go to the audit evidence expected. What would I expect now as conformity? What do I expect to see? Okay. And when we say expect here, all what we are looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is that set of procedures that needs to be followed. We are looking for a model that needs to be followed. And then in this case now, this is what I expect. So as you can see now, this is a description about all of these objectives. And I'm just going to keep it short and sweet, and I'm going to take from this section. What I expect to see here is a particular focus placed on the objectives of the management system, which should be measurable, monitored, communicated, aligned with the policy of the IMS, and also updated when needed. This is what I expect to see. Now, I expect to see this where exactly. So I'm now going to open the IMS manual. Okay, so if I'm going to open the IMS manual, okay, where is the IMS manual? So this is now an IMS manual. What exactly it is? It is an explainer document. This is the document that you use as an auditor to sort of interpret and give more details, shed more light on these goal setting requirements, because these are called goal setting or generic requirements, and they can be vague, or you might not really understand what exactly will it look like if this goal has been met. So you need an further clarification, so as to say. So this is now the clarification that I'm going to have. Where is it? So this is now. So when I'm going to conduct an audit, this is a further clarification, a big explanation. Okay, this section that I'm marking in blue, this is what I expect to see in this process. Okay, and then when I'm going to do that, I'm going to request for these associated records. Okay, like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to request for these two associated records, and I'm going to look for this information like that. You see? So this is now how you prepare an audit checklist, all right? And as we said, when you are going to conduct an audit, what are you doing? You want to gather evidence of conformance, and you're going to gather it right here. You want to gather evidence of what? Consistency, okay? And then this is the evidence of consistency. And then you also want to gather evidence of continual improvement, which is also the what? Which is this section right here in these red flags right here. So if you can go back, when we started this webinar, I sent you this auditing equation. So if you look at this auditing equation and then you look at that diagram on the screen, this is exactly what you're talking about. Okay? Can you make a connection between that text I've sent to you now and what you're looking at on the screen? You see what we're talking about. So this is now what a proper audit is. All right. So this is now how you prepare an audit checklist. And of course, for you to get all your completed audit checklist, please just go and click on this link, or you can also just check your email inbox. You are going to get, because there are going to be 7 columns, okay? 7 columns, each column for all of these documented information that you're supposed to review, all right? So that is now how you create an audit checklist. After creating an audit checklist, now what do you need to do? You now have to record and communicate to the auditees. You now have to write an audit plan. An audit plan, ladies and gentlemen, is basically a summary, okay, for the step number 1 and step number 2. And in this summary, you are writing it to describe how the audit is going to be conducted. Okay, that is what an audit plan is. And when you summarize the activities, what did you do? Okay, and also the results of documented information review, and when you created your audit checklist, you are going to include the purpose of the audit, the scope of the audit. Okay, the purpose of the audit, okay, is basically a performance evaluation. You want to determine, okay, the scope of the audit should always be a process. I cannot emphasize this enough. There is no such thing as an IMS being applied to the whole organization. IMS is only for a process. And then if you read on that document, like when you open the links I've sent you from ISO, it is literally called a process-based IMS. That is what they even say in the introduction. And the audit criteria, that of course is going to be the type B standard, the Annex SL, okay, which is based on the harmonized structure. And then the objective of the audit is to determine capability, okay? IMS audits, they are not for certification because it is based on type B. Type A, these are prescriptive requirements. Those are the ones used for certification. Type, IMS, it is basically for capability. So this is now how you use an audit checklist, how you write an audit plan. So for an audit plan now, we have given you a template already. So I'm just going to go through this template. And for you to describe how the audit is going to be conducted, you are going to do it in 3 sections, okay? There's a section where you're going to write the general information about the audit. You're going to write information about the audit process, about the evaluation, and also the metrics. So we are going to start with the general information. The purpose of the audit, always remember, is to determine the capability of the organization to achieve its intended outcomes, okay? And when we say determining capability, we are talking about, okay, the ability or, whether or not they are capable of moving from this red zone to this green zone. You understand? Within this process, are you capable, okay, of determining these threats and opportunities and also achieving these objectives? What you're looking at these objectives, this is basically these intended outcomes right here. So when you're conducting an audit, you need an IMS policy and a process. These are the 2 pre-requirements. And then your job now is to determine, the job of an auditor here is to determine whether this statement here, all these 15 statements here, can they be achieved within this process? And that is what we are doing now, okay? And then you should also tell them the scope. So the scope, IMS system 4, and this is the PV plant connection process. This is the process right here, the procedure when you are going to connect your solar panel, that is what you have. Of course, you don't have solar panels wherever you're working at. You have a process flow for anything. So that is where you start, okay? And then you also should clarify what is going to be covered by the audit. Always remember, the audit is going to cover the inputs, the process, and then the outputs. It is called a system. It's an integrated management system. All systems have got inputs, processes, and then outputs. So you make sure that the auditees also, they understand that the inputs of an integrated management system is the context, the source of threats and opportunities. The process is going to be the model or the Annex SL, the set of procedures under plan, do, check, and act. And then, of course, the output, these are the objectives and what they've said in the policy. The second part of your IMS or of the audit plan, at this point, we are now discussing about writing an audit plan, okay, describing how the audit is going to be conducted. And then, of course, this is going to be a compliance and performance evaluation audit. The audit process, you also have to list down the roles and responsibilities. Who is going to be doing what during the audit, okay? This does not change, it's always the same. Also, make sure that you also tell them about the method of the audit. All ISO audits are conducted as per ISO 19011 2018 guidelines, these ones, okay? Guidelines for auditing management system standards, ISO 19011 2018 standards. This is the guideline on how you conduct ISO audits. And then also, these are the stages of the audit, okay? And this is the schedule of the audit. So all of these items, this is what you're going to be doing from step number 4 to step number 7. I'm going to come back to this audit checklist, and then we are going to go through the stages. We are also going to go through this visiting plan. All what I'm showing you right now is the content of an internal audit plan. And this is now communicating to the auditees how exactly the audit is going to be conducted. And then after that now, you also should now discuss about the evaluation. At this point, you want to discuss how exactly are you going to determine these audit findings, okay? By what criteria are you going to determine whether it's a conformity or non-conformity? That has to be explained beforehand. So you're going to start off by describing how you're going to determine or how you're going to record your findings. How are you going to determine if it's a conformity or none? And if it is a non-conformity, you should also give examples, okay? It is an audit, there should be transparency, okay? That means everything should be in the open. And then also, you should also discuss if it's a major non-conformity. Here are also the other examples. If it's an observation, these are all the descriptions. Everything should be clear so that, and then I'm going to send this audit plan to this organization at least 2 weeks before the audit so that they can really understand what exactly the auditor is going to be doing. And I'm also going to attach my audit checklist right here. And then if they agree with the contents of my audit checklist and the audit plan, I would require them to type, and then basically they have to sign here. And this is now going to, they just say this document is accepted or this document needs to be amended, whatever reason, okay? It can be rejected or amended because of dates, okay? Sometimes it's a public holiday, or sometimes they've got a special process, or sometimes maybe the operations manager is on holiday at that time, whatever reason, or maybe they just don't agree with the definition of the non-conformity or the sequence of the audit or anything, whatever reason, it can also be not accepted like that. And then you just have to agree with them on what is required. But if everything checks out, they have to say this document is accepted, and then they have to sign. After they sign here now, whatever that we're going to do, we are now going to stick to the script. From this point, nothing is going to change. We are now going to follow exactly what we said in the audit plan, okay? So that is now what you're doing. So we are now going to start now by now conducting the main audit. And when we say auditing, fundamentally, auditing is just comparison of audit evidence to the audit criteria to determine findings, which I said, at the beginning of the webinar, that this is something that you only need like 20 minutes. You have to see twice or 3 times, okay? You'll be done, okay? And that is what you're going to do. So when you're going to conduct an audit, first of all, an audit is conducted on the process. And when I say it is conducted on the process, it means this audit evidence, okay, is going to be gathered on this process. And this audit criteria, okay, is this one, the Annex SL, which is being applied on the process. So that is now what you're going to do here. And of course, during the main audit, okay, you are going to talk to people. Why are you talking to people? Because you're asking questions. Why are you asking questions? Because you're gathering evidence of what? Of consistency, okay? You are going to look for records. Why are you looking for records? So that you can gather evidence of conformity. Why are you gathering evidence of, why are you doing documented information review? So that you can gather evidence of conformity. And then you need to observe. Why are you observing? To gather evidence of continual improvement. Evidence of continual improvement, you're going to be looking at the red flags. And that is all what auditing is. 80%, or you can even say 90% of auditing is just to know what to do. And what to do means which questions to ask, which documents to review, and what to observe. Everything else, it is just going to be, comparing that audit evidence to the audit criteria. So that is what you're going to do here. So at this point, you now go back to this section now. You now open your audit plan, okay? And then when you go back to the audit plan, you are now going to go to this section right here, okay? To the audit process, because this is now where you are, right? And then in the audit process now, you are going to see that, you determined the sequence or the audit stages, how the audit is going to be executed. So the audit now is going to include an open meeting. So an open meeting now, what it is now, an open meeting, this is now, it should not be more than 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. You are explaining the audit process and then you set the scene. Explaining the audit process is the same way, like the auditing equation I've sent to you. You are explaining to them which questions you're going to ask, which documents you're going to look at, and what you're going to be looking for, what is the audit criteria, and also, you are also going to explain to them the purpose of the audit. And then you can also go through the audit plan to make sure that, everything is okay, the availability of the audit is. During the open meeting, really what you're trying to do is just to final confirmation before you get started that really everyone really understands what is going on. And when I say everyone understands what is going on, it means that everyone really understands which questions are going to be asked and why are they going to be asked. What kind of audit evidence is going to be gathered and why is it going to be gathered, which is basically what you've been doing throughout this webinar. After that, now you are now going to start off with what? Examination and evaluation. Here you are going to be using your audit checklist to do your fact finding, and you're interrogating the system and analyzing the findings. And then, of course, you are now going to what? To report your corroborated facts. At this point now, you are now have to tell us whether or not the process, are they capable to achieve those intended outcomes. And then, of course, you present your findings in an audit closing meeting. So during these auditing stages now, you are using an audit checklist. So let me show you how an audit checklist is used. So this audit checklist now, okay, I'm going to be using this audit checklist right here. So first of all, I'm going to start off by going through the description of the process. I need to understand the product or the sales selection process. I need to understand the from the point when they start, delivering the service until it ends, or the customer journey or the process flow. After that, now I also need a diagram like this. This is very helpful so that I can track my movements and where the audit is. And this is now where I'm going to use my audit checklist. So here now you are recommended to work as a team. Okay. So as an auditor, there are going to be 7 columns. So, you can divide maybe 3 auditors. Each auditor is going to be using 2, or let's say, for example, I'm going to be using 1, 2, and 3. Maybe I'm going to look at objectives, operational control, and aspects and impacts. Another auditors will look at other items. But as an individual auditor, I now need to first of all start by looking for. So I'm going to look at these documents. I'm going to request for the minutes of objectives, list of objective targets, and related action plans for this process. And then when I get those documents, you know the drill. I need to look for something. Okay. When you show me those documents, I need to look for something. What is it that I'm looking for? All right. And then this is now what I'm looking for. I need to see, does it correspond to the standard? Does it describe what is happening? Are all of the employees informed and so on? Okay. So let's say I see that some employees are not informed and this procedure is not followed by everyone all the time. Let's say this is what I've seen in this first document. So I'm just going to come over here and then I'm going to write my notes. And then here, everything I looked for, I saw everything that I was looking for. And in these related action plans, let's say out of these 6 things I have to look at, only 1 thing is missing. Okay. Maybe all of these items, it is there, but there is no evidence that these procedures are being followed. So I'm just going to give different color codes. You have to understand that at this point, there is no conformity or non-conformity here. This is not yet auditing. You are just gathering audit evidence. And based on this information now, I'm now going to follow up with this question that, okay, is there any evidence, okay, of objectives and target with each function? Are there targets that you're trying to meet in step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, quality, safety, and then environment, okay? And then let's say everything is okay here. Indeed, this statement is true. Now, I'm going to take this information from the questions and then the document. Now, as a group of auditors, okay, because this is now, you need at least 2 or more people here, because to reduce error of judgment, okay, because this is going to be subjective. You understand? So you need at least 2 people to go over this. And then how we are going to determine these findings here, these red flags, is going to be based only on the information I gathered from the documented information and the documents. So you now have to determine which statement is true and which statement is false based on the questions, i.e. the answers, and also when I was looking for. So let's say, for example, you can say these statements, they are true. So you are going to mark them green. And if these statements are, if these statements, they are true, you mark them red. If they are not true, it becomes a green. It's no longer a red flag. Okay. So if it is a red flag, you mark it a red flag. If it's a green flag, it means that, it is not true. It is becoming a red. okay? Or if it is missing something as an opportunity for improvement, you give a different color coding. So this is actually done in an auditor meeting, okay? And at this point we are here. This is now part of fact finding and analysis of findings. This is what you're doing. So after that now, we are now also within that same team, we now have our audit evidence. So you now have a simple task here that, okay, this section in the blue corner, do you agree or you disagree that it is the same as this section in this white column? Do you agree that this information, what you have here and here, do you strongly disagree or you strongly agree that it's the same? So let's say you disagree, that, I don't think it is the same. You come over here, okay, and then you now generate the audit finding. If you disagree, you just copy this text like this, and then that is going to become your audit finding, like this. You see? And then if you strongly agree, this is going to become your audit finding. And then if you're an auditor, if you're neutral, your observation, like, there's just minor things missing, then that means you're going to come and then this is going to be your description right here. You understand? So this is now how you generate audit findings in an IMS. And again, there are only 5 outcomes to every audit finding. So this is now how you write an audit finding. And this is just one example, okay? We have included other case studies and a completed audit checklist in your toolkit. So when you're going to, that is going to come alongside your course bundle. So this is now what you do, and this is basically how you write your audit findings in an IMS audit. In an IMS audit, okay, you have to know that the outcomes, they are basically limited because we are dealing with goal setting requirements here. Okay, we are dealing with a type B standard. So if it is a goal setting requirement, we look at a goal and then we use a fishbone diagram to determine the possible outcomes. Okay, and then, so because this is not a prescriptive requirement like ISO 9001, 45, 42,000, stuff like that, we are using goal setting requirements. So these are when you gather audit evidence and you compare it to an audit criteria in an IMS, your finding is going to be one of these 5 outcomes. Okay, so that is now what you do as a group discussion. After that, now you have to write your internal audit report. Your internal audit report now, this is now you are going to document your findings, okay? And then according to ISO 19011 2018 standard, the audit report consists of 3 parts, okay? This is now the general part where you have to fill out the audit scope, the audit criteria, and audit objectives. This is now where you have to write your audit findings. That means your conformities and your non-conformities. And there's now the section where you have to conclude now to tell us, okay, you as an auditor, do you think, okay, what kind of evidence you have that is going to tell us whether or not we are capable of achieving these intended outcomes or what you have said in the IMS policy, all right? So that is now what you do. So when you are going to write your IMS audit now, it's very important, okay? It's very important for you to make sure that, there is explainability. Explainability or transparency or, in other words, it has to be easier for the people who are the auditees, okay? For them to fully understand what is really going on. You cannot just say, as an auditor, this is my finding, the expectation is not being implemented, anything, and then you go. Because they are not going to, you don't give them an opportunity or a platform to improve on anything, okay? So when you write your audit report, always keep in mind about your audience. Try to make sure that they are going to understand how did you conduct the audit, okay? So that means in your audit plan, you should include the documented information that you reviewed and the results of that, the results of the questions you asked, the results of your observations by the audit criteria that you used, and then you write your audit findings. And this is now going to be done for each section of the Annex SL. So you're going to report on the context on number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 10. Okay? So the audit plan, or the audit report, is going to start off with this first column. What is the scope? Of course, the scope of the audit is the solar panel connection process. Okay? What is the audit criteria? The audit criteria now is the measurement yardstick, okay? And all what you know here now management system auditors will now have to use this core set of requirements across all industries. The Annex SL, okay, you can come over here and you can click on this link right here if you'd like to see how the Annex SL was developed, okay? Yeah, because, you know, there's, so you can click on this link right here so that you can see the Annex SL applicability of the Annex, you know, like if you want to get background information, like justification of criteria questions, how it was developed and so on, you can just come over here and then you can click this link so that you can really understand why do we use the Annex SL, etc. on like that. Because as I have told you, it's a very, very big problem, really. Most organizations, they just have a collection of standards, and you know, I don't expect to convince anyone in 20 minutes what they've been doing for 15 or 10 years, that, you know, that has been a collection, not an integrated management system. So I think if you can also read by yourself from the ISO standard here, or harmonized structure, they've done a very good job to really explain this concept of integrated management system on how a single harmonized structure, this one, harmonized structure, this one right here, okay? The Annex SL, the new harmonized structure that is being used, how it can have the ability to meet 2 or more standards like that. So they've really done a very good job. They've explained to you how exactly does it work, how it was developed, how it is applied, the rules it was developed. Everything is transparent with ISO, okay? And you can even suggest any corrections that you want. Let's say you want to give them advice or you want to correct them if they are wrong. You can also you know, suggest to this policy, this technical committee right here. It is developed by a joint technical committee group on management system. These are the experts that develop these standards. And if you need to give them advice or anything that you disagree on, you can also just do so like that. So that is basically the audit criteria. Okay, the audit criteria for IMS audit is not an IMS manual, please. Okay, it's the Annex SL. And the objective of that audit, okay, is to determine the capability of the organization to achieve its intended outcomes. That is why you conduct IMS audits, okay? And then summary of the audit now, okay? How exactly do you summarize the audit findings? So the best way to summarize the audit findings, this is now to write the frequently asked questions. So you come over here, okay? And then you look for reasons why exactly people conduct audits, all right? So this is now one of the reasons, some of the reasons why people conduct IMS audits. And then, so these are basically the IMS audits. So you can use that one now to summarize the audits, to summarize your audit findings. So IMS audits, for example, they are conducted to provide a means that, you know, the IMS policy is understood and is being implemented. So for you, you can just say the IMS policy, okay, is understood, okay? And then you can say, but, all right, but it is not being implemented, okay? And then also here now, you see that is basically, and this depends on the results of your what? Of your audit checklist. So this is the best way to summarize your audit findings. You have to give them like highlights, you know, like yesterday there was football, right? There was football yesterday night, at least here. And if I ask you, you know, I think it was France and Spain playing, okay? When I ask you what happened, you have to give me the highlights, who scored, you know, who missed, etc. The highlights, not to show me, to tell me like, you know, there was a throw in the 15th minute, you know, those are less important details than to the, you know, so you have to give in like in highlights way, like when they show you in highlights the key moments. So that is what you're trying to do here. You only have to summarize the audits and you have to address the frequently asked questions. So audits also, they give management confidence that the system is being implemented in the manner prescribed. So you just have to also say here, if the IMS, okay, is being implemented in the manner prescribed, that is also what you're going to report. And always remember, this is done to a particular process. And then, so that is what you have to do in all of these items. You just have to turn them into statements. When it comes now to this section now, okay, so for example here, I gave you an example for clause number 6, okay? So you come here and then you copy like this, and then you say, this is a report for clause number 6 planning. So what was the documented information that I reviewed. I'm going to come over here and then I'm going to say I reviewed the IMS objectives like that. You see? So for each document now that I reviewed, right, I also have to write the findings. Okay, so it's spaced out like this. So for this one, you can see in my audit plan, in my audit checklist, this was red. Why did I mark red here? I now have the opportunity to explain why it was like that. So I can say I marked it red because when I was looking for this, I did not see these three things. So that is why I marked it red. So I'm going to say, for your minutes of IMS objectives, this is what I found. Okay, so I'm going to say some employees are not informed. You think? I'm going to say some employees are not informed. Always remember, when you are writing in an audit report, you should know your audience. Okay, and then I'm going to say the procedures, okay, are not followed by everyone all the time. You see, because the audit report, this is going to be the beginning of of corrective action. So they really need to know that, okay, when the auditor looked at these IMS objectives, what exactly did he see? Okay, so this is what I saw, and there is okay, so there is no objective evidence that these procedures are being followed. So I tell them that this is what I saw when I reviewed these documents like that. You see, simple like that. Presentation is also very important so that the auditees can really understand what really happened. And when you also present your audit findings like this, the process owner, where the audit is being conducted, okay, immediately they are going to know what is currently wrong and where they need to start off from. And then when it comes to the list of objectives, here I said everything is okay. So I'm just going to say list of objectives. This was what? This was satisfactory, okay? And I can say it was adequate. And then for the related action plans, I said there was only one thing that was missing here. And what was that? And then I have an opportunity. I can say maybe the documentation is not controlled, but everything is okay. You understand? Always remember, as an auditor, there should be explainability, like, the documentation is not controlled, okay? Because the auditees, they should actually understand how exactly did you come up with with your audit findings. What did you look at and what did you find? That information is very important. And if you go to clause number 7 of any ISO standard, okay, this is called organizational knowledge. This section that you're looking at here, if you open, okay, if you go to clause number 7 of any ISO standard, right here, okay, this is now called organizational knowledge. This one, you see, it's called organizational knowledge. This one, that is basically what it means. What exactly does it look like? That organizational knowledge is this. Organizational knowledge is information that comes from the reviews, and this is knowledge gained from a process by an organization, and it looks like this. So it's very important for you to include it in your what? In your audit reports. Now, we go to the questions that you asked. Okay, so the questions right here, if this was a green, okay, you basically have to report that, this was the question that I asked. Again, what are you doing here? You are trying to make sure that, the auditees, they really understand what were you doing when you're conducting an audit, the part that you took. Are there any questions and targets associated function? And then you write your responses right here. This is what I found. From the observations now, you come back here. So from the observations, as you can see, so you take all your observations like this, and then you bring them up to here. And then you space them like this, okay? You space them out, you space them out, you space them out, you space them out, you space them out like that, okay? Now, what exactly do you have to do now? At this point now, so what you do now, okay? You now come over here. So if these first two, if these were green flags, so you have to convert them. So if they are green, you say objects and targets, you remove the negative aspect. You say do reflect the policy requirement. So this was again, the second one was in green. So you say the objectives do demonstrate continual improvement. Okay. And then if these two are negatives, okay, you leave them like that. So 1, 2, we leave them like that. And then this one, 3 and 4, okay, these next two, these are what? These are green. So you say the responsibilities are adequately defined. And here we have got what? Detailed means of achieving objectives and what they are met like that. You see, this is how you write your findings. And then the audit criteria, of course, this does not change. It is the same. Because this document right here, this audit checklist, it is your auditor work paper, okay? But this is now the document that you're going to submit to the auditors. So you really need to explain how did you get that, okay? And also when you're going to submit your CPD, okay? When you're going to submit your CPD record, how to record your CPD, when you submit an audit report for the processes like this, that is also going to be a way to really show that indeed you looked at all the aspects that you're required to do. So the audit findings here, of course, we said this is going to be the expectation that you did, and then this is now how you're going to write your audit findings like that. So that is now more or less on how do you write an audit report. So this one right here, you have to write it for what? For clause number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10, okay? This is just an example I'm giving you right here so that you can use for that. So the examples of all those two toolkits and then the checklist, please click on this link or just check your email inbox and then you're going to get those materials. So after that, now we now go to step number what? We now have to go to step number 6. After writing the audit report, we now have to complete the last 2 steps. What is this? We are now going to write the corrective action request. And what you're going to do here, this is now a formal way to ask the organization to resolve a non-conformity. What you're going to do now here, we now have to initiate the process of resolving the non-conformity. In IMS, okay, a non-conformity, it basically means that the goal has not been met because the Annex SL, the harmonized structure, is a goal-setting framework, okay? So some of the goals, it can be in clause number 4, number 5, number 6, have not been met. So we have to request the organization to resolve that non-conformity. And you do that by using this document. So you go to that clause, okay? So for example, this is clause number 6, all right? So I'm going to say in number 6, this is how I write my corrective, non-corrective action request. Category, let us just say this is a minor non-conformity. And this definition of a minor non-conformity should be consistent with the definition in my audit checklist, okay? And then now, area or processes. And then I have to go back to the process, where exactly, and then I can say this is now in step number 5, during site inspection and connection. Please be specific, okay? And then I'm now going to write the statement of non-conformance. So the statement of non-conformance, ladies and gentlemen, should always be given from the red flags right here. So the statement of non-conformity, let's say here, there is no detailed means of achieving objectives. This is a common red flag that I usually see, that, you know, there is no shortage of objectives. Like, for example, these are the objectives. I'm not saying for this organization. I'm just saying just in general. There can be objectives, like they want to take all necessary measures to eliminate hazards, mitigate, risk to occupational health and safety in the workplace environment. But when you look into it, there is really no solid plan on how is it going to be achieved. Okay, they can write a lot of things. We want to fulfill, whatever they can write, but sometimes there is no substance to it. Okay, so that is another common non-conformity that I usually say. So the statement of non-conformity should always be a red flag. Okay, because that is coming from the evidence of what continual improvement. So what exactly are the clause requirements? What were they supposed to do? So what were they supposed to do now? You now go back to the Annex SL, and then you have to pinpoint exactly what was supposed to be done. And then you tell them that, the planning phase was supposed to look at what, how, who, when these risks must be addressed. Okay? Basically, who is going to do what? Particular focus should be placed on objectives and so on. So you're going to basically take all these statements like this. This was supposed to be the plan. Objectives should be measurable, monitored, aligned to the, etc. like that. But the main thing that is lacking here, who and how are these risks going to be addressed? You address risks in order to meet objectives. So I'm going to mention that these were the clause requirements. And then when I say these clause requirements like that, I now also have to give them now what were they supposed to do, okay, in order to look at, to have who, what, and how this is going to be addressed. So I'm now going to go back to the what, to the IMS policy, to the IMS, to the manual. And this is also a way for you as an auditor to self-verify and confirm that indeed there is a non-conformity, okay? Because if you cannot see this statement, okay, if you cannot support the statement of non-conformity, that means you did it wrong. There should be clear evidence, not only from the Annex SL, but also even from the manual. So here now I have got this section. This is to achieve set of objectives which translate goals into concrete actions. That plan to achieve these objectives, this is what was supposed to have been done. So I'm going to take this statement, and I'm also going to make sure that the organization, they understand that this is what I was expecting to see, and I did not see it. And as usual, what am I doing here? I'm giving them a fair chance to resolve a non-conformity, not just write a non-conformity and then I disappear. Not only do I tell them where is the non-conformity, but I also tell them what were they supposed to do. And then lastly, I also have now to give objective evidence. Objective evidence now comes from the documented information. So let's say I can say these related action plans, okay? I'm going to say, now what is the objective evidence you have, that is going to confirm that this was not done and also this statement is true? What evidence do you have? So I can say, when I looked at your related action plans, this is what I saw. Some employees are not informed, the procedures are not being followed by everyone all the time, and so on like that. So I can just use the same, and then I present my findings like this as an auditor, okay? And then at this point now, this is now where you end to write the corrective action. And I'm going to take a copy of this document, and then I'm going to send it to the process owner or the supervisor in step number 5. Do you understand? And so for every red flag that you see, so for example, if this was an audit, it means I'm going to write 2 corrective action requests, which is going to bring you back now to this document. When I said, when you start to conduct an audit, before you do anything, make sure that they are using an integrated management system. Because if you don't confirm first with this document, what you're going to have here, you are going to have all red flags. And all of these red flags, that means you're also going to have a lot of non-corrective action requests. So in that way now, it's better for them to resolve those non-conformity, to build an integrated management system here before they proceed to an audit. And also remember, an audit basically is performance evaluation. So for an audit to be conducted, something should be performing, so it's the same, okay? So if you don't have an IMS performing, how are you going to evaluate performance? What exactly are you evaluating? So you need, first of all, to confirm there is an IMS. That is also going to help you reduce this number of red flags. Otherwise, all of these are going to be red flags, and you're going to be having a lot of corrective, the non-conformity reports, okay? So after that now, you now submit it to the process owners. And then the process owners now, they are going to resolve that. And then the last step, I have to conduct the follow-up of that corrective action. And then right now, I'm going to conduct an audit again. But this audit now is not going to cover all the other other aspects. I'm only going to focus on that audit that I was doing before, which is for objectives in this sense. And then I'm only going to focus only on those non-conformities, and I'm going to use all the internal audit techniques like the ones I've showed you in this webinar. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to submit these to the people in step number 5 right here. People in step number 5, I'm going to submit them with a non-corrective action request. And then what they have to do now, they have to conduct a root cause analysis here. Okay? They have to do a root cause analysis, or what they call a 5 whys method. You understand? And then after that now, there should be a correction and containment. This is called a trial method. Okay? It's called a trial method or a proposed solution. You understand? What does this mean? It means that, after they're going to do the root cause analysis, they're going to say, okay, why is it that in step number 5, we don't have a detailed means to achieve objectives? Let's say they can say, lack of awareness, the supervisor did not know that we need an objectives program. And then what are they going to do? They're going to say, okay, let us develop an objectives program, all right? And then in order to do that, it is very simple. You just come over here to the IMS implementation toolkit, okay? You open your toolkit like this, and then you go to the procedures for EHS objectives like that. And then you're going to follow this procedure to resolve that non-conformity. That is what this toolkit is for, okay? So after that now, they now have to come up with a solution. And then for me as an auditor, okay, I'm going to conduct an audit here. If this proposed solution is enough to resolve this non-conformity, I'm now going to approve, okay? It's now going to be called the approved solution by the auditor, okay? That means myself as an auditor, I'm going to confirm that indeed you have followed a procedure in order to make this statement true. This is a goal, and then that is basically how you do it like that. So that is now as per step number 7, okay? So that is how you conduct an audit like that. So in this audit now, for your CPD learning outcomes, this is now what you need to do, all right? So let me now conclude this webinar. So this is now the list of learning objectives that you should know. This is what every IMS auditor should know. You should understand how to establish an audit plan in an audit checklist. I think we did that in more detail. You should understand how to collect audit evidence. That means how to use an audit checklist, and also the audit findings. I've showed you the 5 different outcomes in an audit findings. And also you should understand how the audit process, how to audit the process and performance of an IMS. And the process of the audit is always conducted on a process, and you should prepare and distribute an IMS audit report and to conduct and follow up the audit reports. This, ladies and gentlemen, that is what you need in order to have your CPD profile like that, okay? So those are the learning objectives. If you maintain a CPD profile, this is basically what you're going to submit. Or if you do not, I really recommend you to update your CPD, okay? Because in auditing, no one really takes you serious. No one will take you seriously unless you have a record that or at least you have done it before. So with that being said, now to conclude this webinar, okay, when you conduct an IMS audit, you are there to determine the capability. So be careful not to skip any of these 7 internal steps in the internal audit process. These are based on ISO 19011, the 2018 guidelines. And you should also thoroughly perform the document review to prepare yourself for the audit, okay? Also as an auditor, and when I say document review, okay, remember, you have to look at and then you have to look for. I've showed you what to look for and what to look at, okay? Because the audit document review, that is also going to help you to create your own internal audit checklist. There's no such thing as an internal audit checklist that is prepared only for you to use, because the results of documented information review, they're going to be different, and that is how you're going to use that. So all the templates I'm giving you, these are just like the examples to guide you, all right? You should create your own internal audit checklist. Your audit report always focus on the audience, okay? The people who are going to read it. These are busy individuals. These are people who might not really have a profound understanding of IMS or anything like that, or ISO standards. So make sure that it is simple, it is short, and you only report what is necessary, okay? And what is necessary is a contribution to what you call organizational knowledge as per clause 7.2 in different ISO standards. And then you should also initiate the corrective actions to make sure that the responsible people see them. And I've showed you the template for the NCR, okay, for an IMS audit. And your job should be considered done after you verify that indeed the proposed solution or the pilot solution is really suitable and sufficient and adequate to meet the goal setting requirements. And that is basically how you resolve those non-conformities, all right? So yes, with that being said, now that will bring us to the end of the webinar, okay? So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for taking time to attend this webinar. Until next time, I'll see you. So this is now this now brings us to the end of the webinar, okay? Please check your email inbox for the resources that you're going to get. As you know, this is all the materials that you're going to receive for the $100 package. This $100 package, ladies and gentlemen, is a promotional offer, okay? This offer, it ends today because this course bundle is usually available on a subscription for $49 a month. So, but if you pay $100 today before this working day ends, you are going to get a lifetime access to this course bundle. okay, where you're going to get the guidance on integrated management system, a webinar recording, plus notes on integrated management system auditing, IMS forms, checklists, and procedures so that you know how these documents look like when you conduct an audit. You're also going to get an implementation toolkit to help you with the non-corrective action and how to implement an integrated management system, okay? This module on how to implement an IMS, we have added it, okay, in case you encounter an organization who are using a collection of standards. So when you are going to do your review here and you see that they don't have an integrated management system, you can just open this section on how to implement an IMS to help them develop an integrated management system. And when you're conducting an audit, this is also a handbook for IMS auditing findings. So this is now what you're going to get for this promotional offer. And of course, you're going to get a CPD approved certificate, which is recognized internationally. Okay. So this offer, as I've said, please, it ends today. And this link is going to be deactivated at the end of our working day. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending this webinar. Until next time, goodbye. Okay. And as the review, okay, these are the two blogs. This is to summarize everything that we said in the webinar. Okay. This is basically integrated management system auditing in 7 steps. And this is again, what is risk-based thinking in ISO management standard to explain to you how exactly the IMS works. And you can also read it over here. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending. Until next time, goodbye.